Good morning, members and officers, and welcome to this meeting of full council. It's nice to be here in person with a good number of elected members and officers with us. Before we start today's meeting, I am sure members will wish to join me and the rest of the country in congratulating the British men's curling team on their silver medal and the women's team for their gold medal in the Winter Olympics. And to say to the Dumfries and Galloway team members, Vicky Wright, Grant Hardy, Hammy McMillan, Bobby Lammy and Ross White, how very proud we are of their achievement. As members will recall, one of our council plan actions is to celebrate local sporting success with appropriate civic recognition. And these curling champions will be part of a reception that we are arranging for local sports people who have enjoyed national and international success in recent times. The arrangements for this will be shared by the Leisure and Sport team in due course, and I hope that as many members as possible will be able to join in and show their appreciation. It is particularly appropriate that we are mentioning curling today, as a partnership between Dumfries Curling and Scottish Curling has brought the Scottish Men's and Women's Curling Championships to Dumfries this week, the first time it has been held in our region, and we had some good publicity on Reporting Scotland for that last night. We're delighted to be able to hold such a prestigious event in our council venue, the Ice Bowl, and extend a very warm welcome to all the competitors, their supporters and the officials of Scottish Curling. We hope you have a successful and enjoyable event. Now, a number of members have expressed a wish to record their congratulations to our region's Olympic medalists. And once the business of today's meeting, which is a setting of council tax and the balanced budget, is finished, I'll invite members who wish to speak to do so. Back to the business of today's meeting, which is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the council website for public listening. Could I remind members to follow the Good Practice Guide, which is, if you are a remote member, muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting. If you wish to contribute to any item, please write speak in the Teams chat function and you will be invited to speak in order. And it would be helpful if members in the hall could do so on their phones, but people will be looking out for raised hands as well. Please ensure that there is no material posted in the chat function, which is actually a contribution to the debate and should therefore be shared in the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call, and if any member has to leave the meeting, please, if you're remote, either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time and rejoin, or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting, so that will allow us to record member presence and ensure that the meeting is collated at all times. Today our agenda is focused on the budget and council tax, and we have one budget proposal submitted by the administration group to consider. So I'm just going to take a few moments to outline how I intend to conduct the meeting, because I think that will help it to go more smoothly. This budget was submitted within the procedure and timescales agreed at full council on the 24th of June 2021. Now, due to a clash with COSLA Conference, the date of this budget setting meeting was brought forward by 2 days, and the Head of Finance advised members by email on the 31st of January that the dates of submission and publication would also have to be brought forward by a couple of days, and this was complied with. The budget comprises both revenue and capital proposals. Amendments to that budget, in my view, comprise a different budget and should therefore have been submitted within the agreed timescale. Amendments to the content of the budget will not be taken, so I will adhere to the process I have applied for the last 4 budgets. I draw members' attention to Standing Order 10.2.6, which states that the mover of a motion or amendment shall speak for not more than 5 minutes. Each succeeding speaker shall speak for not more than 2 minutes and shall speak only once in the same discussion, unless to call attention to a point of order or with the sanction of the leader to make an explanation. So, therefore, I will permit the authors of the proposed budget, which are myself, the Deputy Leader, the Chair and the Vice Chair of Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee, to answer questions from members on the content of the budget. If Rob, Adam or Katie wish to answer a member's question, they should indicate their wish to speak in the same way as a council officer would if they wish to answer questions on a report to us. For the avoidance of doubt, these members are also entitled to make a contribution to the debate. If a procedural motion is proposed, the debate on the budget motion will be suspended to enable the procedural motion to be debated and a vote taken. Contributions to the debate on a procedural motion are separate and won't prevent a member from making contribution in the debate on the budget motion, but the provisions of Standing Order 10.2.6 will apply. Finally, for the avoidance of doubt, the definition of a point of order is a query in a formal debate or meeting as to whether the correct procedure is being followed. So, Vlad, can you provide the sederant and any apologies, please?
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, everyone. I can confirm we have 19 members present in the Council Hall. We have 23 present on Teams, 42 present overall, and Councillor Ronnie is currently not present. No apologies have been received from members.
Thanks, Vlad. Do any members have a declaration of interest they wish to make? Okay. Gail.
Sorry. Thank you, Leader. Just to declare an interest in item 5. My role as spokesperson, I've obviously been involved in national budget negotiations, but I will remain for the debate and feel that it doesn't preclude me from participating. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. There is mention of Swestrands, and as Chair of Swestrands, I will still continue to participate, but I just want to record it that it is noted that that Swestrands is within the budget.
Thanks both. So if we can proceed to item 3 on the Council Tax and Community Charges restrictions on voting. This is a procedural report presented in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, which came into force with effect from the 6th of March 1992 and which may affect member voting rights and council tax matters. It is a legal requirement that a member who is 2 or more months in arrear of council tax does not have voting rights in relation to fixing the council tax and requires to make a declaration to that effect. Nick Evans is here to assist members with any questions. So are there any questions on that? Okay, anybody with a declaration to make? I suspect not, but great, thank you. And then we've noted the provisions of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. Item 4 is a report by the Head of Finance and Procurement. This report provides information to assist members in determining the Council's budget and council tax level for 2022-23 and the updated 10-year capital investment strategy. The report highlights that in setting the council tax, we are required to do so based on an overall balanced budget for the financial year. In response to lobbying undertaken through COSLA in relation to the very disappointing funding settlement, the Scottish Government has allocated an additional £120 million to local government, from which our council will receive £3.44 million. Disappointingly, while pay, national insurance and the inflationary pressures facing councils will increase spending on a recurring basis, the Cabinet Secretary has indicated that the additional £120 million is being provided on a one-off basis for 2022-23 only. The report sets out the current budget position and funding gap, as well as providing the details of the capital investment strategy, and therefore provides the basis from which members have been asked to develop their budget proposals. And we have Paul here to assist members with the questions. So have members got any questions for Paul? I'm not seeing any questions for Paul, so I think we have all considered at some length the information reflected in the report, because it has been provided to us on a number of occasions as it's developed, and we've done so in determining both the revenue and capital investment strategy. Happy that has been fulfilled? Okay, so we'll turn to the presentation on the budget proposals. Take a swig first. It's not that we're going to speak for more than 5 minutes, but this is the 5th budget this administration has presented to the Council, and it is the last one that I shall present. Set against the background of reductions over many years in the real terms funding of local authorities, budget setting is always a challenging process and one that I will not miss. Many thanks are due to my colleagues, the budget leads for finance, procurement and transformation, Councillors Adam Wilson and Katie Hagman, Deputy Leader Councillor Rob Davidson, Paul Garrett and his team, and the senior leadership team for their hard work and advice in preparing this budget. As colleagues are aware, this council faces a spending gap of £8.505 million, as the Scottish Government did not include pay awards, national insurance increases, inflation or climate change in the settlement awarded to local authorities. Addressing these pressures requires recurrent funding to be built into our core budgets. Our share of the non-recurrent funding referred to under item 4, 3.44 million, has been used to help to close the funding gap. But this does only help solve the problem this year, because the recurrent gap will reappear next year. We have identified savings amounting to 2.771 million, some of which were identified through the Council's transformation process. Our savings include office accommodation, IT connectivity charges, savings arising from not being able to progress some of our capital investment programme over the past couple of years due to COVID restrictions, the use of technology to reduce travel costs, reducing supply teaching costs, and the removal of a small number of vacancies which have not been filled. In addition, we will increase council tax by 3%. We appreciate that council tax rises will be unwelcome at this time of rapidly increasing inflation. However, it is necessary to increase our recurrent funding, as the council will also be affected by inflationary increases. The increase is less than the rate of inflation, which is currently running around 5%. Also, there was no rise in last year, so effectively the rise is over 2 years, and it will be offset for bands A to D by payments from the UK and Scottish governments. We are introducing 3 recurrent funding proposals, all of which were supported by the relevant service committees. The introduction of a fostering fee amounting to over 8,000 per fostering family per year, in addition to the current allowance, intended to increase the availability of local foster carers and reduce dependency on expensive agency placements. The nuisance caused by gulls is a frequent matter for concern and complaint in many of our towns, and we will therefore fund on an annual basis a series of measures to control their activities. Public transport simply isn't working as it should in our region, and we are therefore increasing funding to Suez Strands for 3 additional posts to develop and deliver a new public transport model. These proposals will predominantly be funded by temporary use of non-recurrent funding. However, they will need to be considered as part of the core budget in future years. We are proposing 7 policy development allocations from non-recurrent funding amounting to 2.264 million. These can all be accommodated from within an allocation to this council, arising from monies retained from the business rates incentivisation scheme in 2017-18 and 2018-19, which amount to 3.074 million. Our policy development includes an additional 370,000 to enhance our anti-poverty funding, taking the total to 1 million to be allocated next month to the Communities Committee, by the Communities Committee. We intend to run the successful Summer of Play initiative over the summer holidays again this year, offering a range of activities to our children and young people. An extension of the graduate scheme will offer 4 co-funded graduate placements to third sector organisations and social enterprises, and we are allocating 270,000 over 3 years, in addition to the annual budget of 185,000, to help the council achieve our net zero commitments. The roads maintenance budget will be topped up by almost £1 million to assist with inflationary price increases and to increase the provision of reactive repair and maintenance squads. As agreed by the Communities Committee, the Council will fund 250,000 of the 1.5 million in a regional tennis centre, and we will provide a further 50,000 for an options appraisal into a replacements for the Diamond Jubilee and Cuthbertson Memorial bridges, which were swept away in the October storms. With regard to the capital investment strategy, we propose allocations in 22-23 to our flood prevention schemes to finance project management and additional staff costs, 800,000 for the design of the rebuild of Dumfries High School, 300,000 towards the refurbishment of Dumfries Academy and the relocation of Lowerburn Primary, and 740,000 towards projects within the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, and these will be subject to ongoing monitoring and reports to members. So I move the motion, which members will find on page 17 of our budget document, which is to agree the administration's budget proposals, agree the staffing policy for schools between 19 and 25 pupils to be updated as detailed in page 4, and to note that Dumfries and Galloway Council is awaiting further information regarding music tuition and advices from learners from the Scottish Government, and agree that this is taken by the Education and Learning Committee at its next meeting. So, having moved that motion, I invite Deputy Leader Councillor Rob Davison to second the motion.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, members, colleagues. I'll echo your thanks to Councillor Kate Hagman, Councillor Adam Wilson for their hard work in putting together this budget, and as always, to Paul Garrett for his patience and his ability to explain complicated concepts in a straightforward manner that even I can comprehend. I'm always very grateful for his assistance. This is a good budget, and it does, as every budget we have proposed over the last 5 years, provide leadership and stability in what have become increasingly difficult times. I'm glad that we are limiting council tax rise to 3%. We recognise that there is a substantial and growing cost of living crisis, and as you have said, Leader, that does ensure that we are taking a degree of that burden on ourselves as an authority rather than placing it on the people we serve. But we still leave substantial flexibility for the next council, which I believe will be essential in going forward. Our budget invests more in the climate emergency, and I hope that funding will help us to secure even more substantial investment in this important piece of work. It protects road repairs funding from inflationary pressures, which I believe is critical to the infrastructure of our region. And as you have outlined, it provides stability for small schools. And while there is not a budget consequence from that in this year, the policy change, I hope, will provide certainty and stability for our small schools in the future. And I sincerely hope it will be a permanent change. Our budget, I think, most importantly, at present, continues our commitment to supporting the most vulnerable. I believe that's never more important and never has been more important than it is now. Leader, this is a good budget. I am proud to second the motion in our names, and I do trust it will pass unanimously given the absence of alternatives today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Can I take people's questions and comments, please? Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Leader. And I would also like yourself like to thank the finance team. We did actually have something together ready to go in regards to a budget, but ultimately our decision was we thought our efforts and our energies were better focused on the upcoming election. So as you've already alluded to, I think we've got a poor SNP government settlement for all local authorities, but obviously we're focusing on Dumfries and Galloway Council today. It could have been better, is an understatement. But the focus for us today is, like you've said, already outlined in the processes that we've previously agreed, is that there is one budget being presented. There's no way in which we can actually contest that. There's no actual process in which to do that. Some of the things we felt very strongly, I think, actually is your roads investment. So it's a 0% increase in real terms, as you've alluded to already. And as far as it's an inflation uplift, it covers the cost of materials. We did touch on this last year at the budget process. We need to have further investment in our roads. That has to happen. We did pick up, you've adopted one of the Conservatives' policies in regards to single teacher primary schools, so we definitely support that. So that number being 25 being reduced to 19, we accept that as a good policy to take forward. There's a number of things we could speak about in regards to history, but I think we'll leave that to the last council meeting, Leader, in regards to how we feel the council's performed over the last 5 years. I think it's appropriate then, going back to my comments in as far as this budget being here presented today. I think very much if we get the result, what we hope to get, there'll be a Conservative-led administration after me, and we will look to reset any particular points that we want to do then. We want to save our energies. We'll discuss our manifesto and our policy decisions on the road with our constituents, all going well. If we get anything like the welcome we got last time, we'll have over the last 2 or 3 elections as well since then, we are reasonably confident that that'll be the case. But ultimately, we'll get to that point. But Leader, that's I suppose, in as far as that's comments and a question is, in real terms, I would say there's a real lack of investment in regards to roads. I'll leave it at that. You've said comments and questions. The planning department is also on his knees, but I mean, there's probably other members who want to come in, and we spoke about that last time as well. So from my perspective, there is only 2 points. There's no investment there, as far as I can see, in the planning department. That's one point. Why was that? Is that not something I think we spoke about last year? It should have been done. We know it's very difficult, the impact that has in the local economy, but the roads investment, we cannot leave the roads. As a council, as a local authority, we have that responsibility to our constituents and residents. We need to have a high level of investment, but you have chosen not to do that. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Brodie, followed by Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chair. I know you'll all be disappointed that there's no Liberal Democrat budget on the table this year. For 14 years, I've prepared a budget, and through various misfortunes, it hasn't appeared before the council. There's reasons for this year is that although sadly lacking and probably kicking the can down the road, I think this is the best admin budget we've had for the 15 years I've been on the council. There's some things where I'd like to welcome in particular. The feasibility study for the Annan Bridges is very important to the community of Annan, because the Cuthberts and Diamond Jubilee are part of our society and our soul, and it's important that we take forward and replace these bridges over the next couple of years. The tennis centre is a good development for this region, and I hope you would consider it being at Moffat, which is the home of tennis in Dumfries and Galloway. The summer of play was successful last year, and hopefully be another success this year, and the support for foster carers is welcome. There are a number of things which have been close to my heart over the years. Investment education. It's good to see that we're investing in support for learning assistants this year, instead of cutting them back like we did over a number of years, which was certainly to the detriment of pupils in Dumfries and Galloway. Increased teacher numbers and improving composite classes numbers. I think that's really important to lots of parents and children across the region. As a member of Sustrans, developing a new transport model, I think that is a really good and sensible way ahead to improve connections across our rural area. And as a member of the Climate Change Action Group from the council, I'm very proud of our efforts to achieve net zero as a council. I think, though, that we could have been a bit more ambitious. Roads, I think we're just putting extra money in, but that's just a standstill. In an ideal world, we need to be investing more money in our road infrastructure. And as I said at the Economy and Resources Committee over a week or so ago, we are not investing enough in regenerating our towns, and that starts by getting the full complement of staff in place to support our communities, because there are lots of money out there to be invested in our town centres, and we must have the staffing capacity to achieve that. Obviously, another issue is seagulls across the region. I got another email this week about it, and although we are addressing the issue in the budget, it probably take a lot greater investment to get to the root of that problem. So, in conclusion, I thank the administration for their budget, and I almost commend it, but I can't get that far. But good luck with this budget going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Leader. As my group leader said, there's the only budget on the table here today, in front of us here today. Obviously, the concerns from myself is the roads are in a poor state in the region. I think most people know that. Lack of maintenance, obviously. The pothole scores are well behind. But these, no doubt, will be addressed with a new administration in May. And hopefully we can get to on top of the maintenance, pothole squads and cleaning out the drains and lack of maintenance over the years due to COVID and lack of budget. So hopefully that will be dealt with. Regarding the gulls, it's nice to see there's a part here about the gull management. But me, personally, I'd take it a step further. I'd have them culled, and that's my view, not the view of everybody around the room here. But at least there's a step forward there. We're seeing some sort of, well, not a talking shop, but more of a gull management process. But at least I'm delighted to see there's a bit in there today mentioning that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I don't think Nature Scott would allow you to go out with your gun and shoot them.
I'm not worried about them.
Councillor Sloan.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I'm not going to keep you long, because no way can anybody try and begin to pretend that this is a good budget of any kind. We are not, I don't think we can fulfil our obligations we have got to the people out there. I think particularly about care homes, our part that we play in that, we're certainly not delivering. We do deliver to some of the, but it's to the ones in the shortfall that is worrying me. I mean, we have said over recent years there should have been better increases within the council tax. Well, the Scottish Government was telling us, no, let's have a council tax freeze. If we hadn't had those council tax freezes, we wouldn't have had the problem we've got today. It certainly would have been a lot easier on us if the Scottish Government, the SNP Scottish Government, had just listened to us. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Sloan. Councillor James.
Good morning, Leader. And I too welcome a good turnout. But where is the Lib Dem? You know, surely we've passed the stage where, for important meetings that people can take part remotely. I think when we're deciding the spend of £380 million, I think we should all show up on a day like that. But perhaps he's feeling disempowered because the money and the power is being leached away all the time to Holyrood. And I'm really, you know, surely that's something we all regret. Where's our campaign to try and stop that? Where's the voice of Dumfries and Galloway saying we want to retain some semblance of autonomy here? Okay, I said where's the Lib Dem? The Lib Dem budget didn't show up either, but where's the Conservative budget? Well, there would be no point in the Conservatives putting forward a budget because the Independents only vote with the Labour bloc. And 2 years ago, they had the chance to actually take part in the budget process that was offered by the Conservatives and vote with them on that occasion, and they turned it down. So what are they actually doing here when they are not taking part in that, not giving full value? And the Socialist budget is missing too. We now have a situation where it would have been legal to present a budget with an 18% increase in council tax. And because it's legal, is it no longer exciting enough? Where is that? So I could have supported an inflation level council tax increase. Why not? I mean, I could have done if I thought the money would be well spent. But we've never seen efficiency coming in. We've never seen the councillors standing up in 5 years and actually drilling down, becoming specialists on their subjects and being able to interact as equals with officers and actually leading the council. That hasn't happened, and I really hope that's something the next council can do. I mean, I really congratulate you, Leader, on leading a coalition and keeping it together for 5 years. That's no mean achievement in itself. But I think we've come to the point where we need a majority single party now that actually councils would then maybe have the freedom and opportunity and the actual accountability to actually have to take back control of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. I suppose in response is that we have agreed that we will have hybrid meetings and therefore people are entitled to attend remotely or in person as they wish. And today a lot of people have wanted to attend in person, but people still have that provision to attend remotely should they wish to do so. Can I call Councillor Doogie Campbell?
Thank you, and I'd like to take this opportunity to additional 270,000 for over the 3 years for our work, or to progress our work on achieving net zero. The climate change team at the present time is relatively small, but if we really want to make a major impact on the region, this money will be vital to help us achieve that. And I hope that the Assistant Project Officer will be appointed imminently. But I think bringing in additional resource to bring us to a position where we have shovel-ready projects will be very welcome indeed. I'd also just like to thank my fellow councillors on the Climate Emergency Cross-Party Working Group for their support of the work that the Climate Emergency team have been doing over the last 12 months. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. The issue, I think, here is about consensus. And what is coming through, despite a bit of blustering and a bit of huffing and puffing, is actually an effort to come to some consensus. And the sort of things that you've put together, looking at the services that we are providing the public, the fostering service, the summer of play, the climate change, the roads, yes, I agree with some members that we should be putting more in there. The public transport proposals, the gulls, the bridges, the capital effort. All of these things, if we actually look round and really ask ourselves, there's nothing to really get to grips with here that we couldn't probably agree with. Now, interestingly, I am in agreement with the Socialist group that we have not raised council tax sufficiently high. In my discussions with you, you will remember that I said that I felt that as an independent grouping, we thought probably that the council tax should be raised in order to provide the sort of level of investment that people are seeking. Unfortunately, that was not to happen, but I do think that given that the finance officers have pointed out in the previous report that we are 7% below the national average in council tax, I really think we've got to change that. And I have to say to you, Leader, that out there, if we go and talk to the public, they would not be surprised if it actually was to be raised just a bit more. So I think in the future that we should really probably grasp that nettle. I'm quite amused at Councillor Sloane's lack of remembering, because when we did try to raise the council tax many, many years ago, the Labour Party, of which he was a member then, absolutely refused point blank to raise it. So anyway, it's quite useful to have a little bit of a history lesson, Councillor Sloane. But thank you. I am grateful for my Lib Dem colleague for not having to put in a budget, because that would have meant more exhaustion and grappling in the group. And as you know, I am quite happy to propose to agree with your proposal, and I hope that we'll move on as a council in a continuing consensual manner, because it sounds to me as if we all want the same sort of things. It's just how much money we are prepared to put towards them. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I mean, certainly the case that if we had council tax at the same level at the national average, we would have covered our spending gap. But people are being hit with huge inflationary, energy bills are going through the roof, fuel's going up, food prices are going up. This is not the time to raise council tax by any significant amount, because residents, and we're still a low pay area, we're still an area with lower than average pay, and it's not the time to raise council tax by any excessive amount. But obviously it is something that future councils will have to consider, I think, because unless there's a change of heart in terms of the funding of local government, the problem's not going away. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the West Strands Board, I would in actual fact like to acknowledge and recognise that they have in actual fact taken on board what the board has been asking for, and very much appreciate that. And we are desperately keen to try and bring change, for our public transport within Dumfries and Galloway. Now, with regard to council tax, I am deeply concerned. Scotland is already the highest tax region of the UK, and we should not be using council tax as a means of filling the gap that has been brought about through the Scottish Government not giving us the proper allocation. And I think that in view of the fact that it is being used in that way, our constituents will be deeply disappointed that they're not getting the services that they should be getting. We are already seeing our road network is in a dire state. It's not just potholes, they are disintegrating in front of us. And unless we get large sums of money put into road repairs, it's going to get to a stage whereby they're going to be goat tracks and nothing else. Waste management. I have areas within our ward whereby rural people are having to take their waste to a central collecting point more than 3 miles from their home. Some of these people are elderly and infirm and rely on carers, etc., to get that waste to those points. I don't think they're going to be too pleased that they're going to get a 3% increase in their council tax. Furthermore, by increasing council tax by that amount, we will, in actual fact, put more people into poverty. So I'm actually very disappointed, and on behalf of my constituents, I feel there's a failing here within the budget on that particular area. So I'll leave it at that. But thank you once again on behalf of the board, though, for taking into consideration our plea.
Again, thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. And first of all, I would like to echo the thanks to finance colleagues and indeed all officers who've helped groups in preparing this budget, and also thanks to the elected members from across a couple of groups represented in the Council for engaging with us on the budget proposals. I think, considering that we've got some people saying we're not raising council tax far enough and some people saying that we're raising it too high, means we've probably struck the right balance in making sure that we protect local people's incomes over the cost of living crisis that we face. And of course, if only we had a government like the Welsh Labour government that is increasing core council revenue budgets by 9%, we could make some very different sets of decisions here. It appears that a lot of the discussion today is focusing on roads, and I think there's a clear difference. You know, this is an administration that is governing and that is delivering for local people. Last year at budget setting, we allocated £2.4 million over 3 years to roads. Within the last financial year, through the review of asset classes, we allocated another £1.5 million over 2 years to roads. And today we're proposing an additional nearly £1 million to tackle the inflationary pressures facing our road service. That's nearly £5 million in the space of 12 months that we're allocating in addition to the money already budgeted for roads. So I think that that is a significant investment in local roads and making sure that we're tackling the challenges facing our road service, not just talking about putting more money into roads. It's a shame that the Conservatives seem to be sort of following the Boris Johnson playbook, you know, can do slogans at elections and focus on winning elections, but completely incapable of governing in a fair, inclusive way for the many and not just for the small few. But I'm sure the electorate will be able to take their views on that at the ballot box in May.
Right, Councillor Drybury.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leader. I fully support the administration budget going forward. It's just to sort of follow up on what Councillor Wilson said there. I'm really concerned. Again, this is the second time that the Conservative and Unionist group hasn't put a budget forward. If they're supposed to be looking after their constituents, then we will see what happens at the May elections. But this is the second time they haven't put a budget forward. They haven't put an argument forward to sort of move things forward with regards budgets. I wish, as Councillor Wilson said, that we had the 9% increase that the Welsh councils have actually got. But I think from my perspective, this is the best budget we can put forward with the information and the budgets that we actually have. Bit disappointed in the Liberal Democrats not coming forward with a budget, because you always have a bit of fun on that side of things. But I'm pleased to support this budget going forward, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Driver. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, as always, some of us seem to suffer from selective memory. I remember the independent group putting forward a 21% rise in council tax, and that's no far from memory. But you did start by saying this was your fifth budget, and then your deputy leader described it as a good budget. I don't think it's a good budget when we're taking £8 million out of public services, and it's something that we as the Socialist Group have always been conscious of in that respect. You referred to the £120 million, not near enough, and I would echo your sentiments, because it does not include many of the rises that we should be and have to be putting in. I believe it's Glasgow City Council that's resisting, and it's SNP-led and going back. And perhaps if the 32 councils had collectively marched on Holyrood and demanded a greater settlement, we might have got somewhere in unity for a much better settlement than we've got just now, because I don't think any of us come into local government, or at least I haven't, and I think I'm safe in saying everybody, although I'm not too sure of maybe some in the chamber, but we didn't come into local government to administer the cuts that we have done over the past 15 years. And of those 15 years, or almost the 15 years, we've had a cap on council tax. And we have suffered now, and each and every year that we've set our budget, that it's all been about cuts to public services, cuts to jobs, cuts to living income and so forth. So I don't think we have come into that. And again, with what many have spoken of, the rate of inflation, energy costs going through the roof, it wouldn't have been the time. So maybe the 3% is about right, but it should have been much higher to maintain the services and everything else. And I'm pleased to see that we're continuing with £1 million of anti-poverty money, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough. Our rate of child poverty is increasing. It was 1 in 4 and it's gone beyond that, and it will continue to increase in anti-poverty. There is mention of 10 teacher placements, which is welcomed. But again, this is to address the support for learners and the way pupils, children are suffering there, and we really need to seriously look at that. Something that I've been advocating for some time now. There's reference to the girls, which is long outstanding, and I know maybe John doesn't agree that we can't tackle the problem, but we at least have got to try. And then there's the flood damage. I hope we don't exclude the South Rins and Dromore that suffered severe damage there. So there are these parts, but they're tinkering on the edges, because we've got £8 million of cuts to find. And it's good to hear that Councillor Maitland actually got round in the 5th year of the budget to actually saying that she could support the Socialist group, because she spent her time opposing it for all the time. You know, and it's strange that that's the time. I do, and I often wonder why Councillor James has not come forward with his budget. Doesn't it take two? One can put forward a budget and he may get support within the chambers, but we've never had the luxury or the opportunity to see what a budget would look like from Councillor James. We've heard plenty of criticisms, and he seems to focus it on the Socialist group, and I'm pleased to say that the right and the left is far enough away that we can live apart.
Thank you, Councillor Sloan. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to, I know there is a shortage of finance and we can't increase finance because of what the government's put up, but if we look at the family placements, fostering fee and social work, where they're looking at a spend to save, they're looking to pay foster carers within the community to come on board and help, given that at the present moment where we've external placements in other parts of the country, it's costing us about £49,000 a year. But if we can get that done in region, the annual cost to a foster placement could be down to £18,694, and that would hopefully attract more people to look after these children. Now, you could argue that we could, if we do that and we can get the foster carers, we can bring these children that's out of region back into region. But we've got to look at the conditions these youngsters are in, and if they're thriving in these conditions, they must be left there. You can't just shift them because all of a sudden we've got foster carers. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a progress. It's a target in progress, if you like, that we try to attract more fostering people into the fostering service and help the youngsters that's in the region that need that help. So I think we should acknowledge that attempts are made to make savings, and the way we're trying to do it, the service has got to still be a good service, but we can do it at a reduced cost and keep the children closer to home. And I think that's the important part of it. we can all argue that we need to put council tax and all that sort of thing. But I got notification about gas and electricity bills, and that kind of put me off increasing anything. But that's it anyway, Chair. Just to draw people's attention to the family fostering fees.
Thanks, Councillor McKee. Councillor Drysdale.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, members and officers. First, I'd like to thank my fellow members and officers for the concerted efforts re the Galloway Management Programme and the positive decisions that have been made, finally, with regards to teaching and learning support in schools. Our young people are our future and they need to receive our full support. Going forward, whoever is in administration after May will hopefully work in conjunction with the NHS and the IGB to implement effective home teams in order to solve the bed blocking crisis that is affecting so many people in this region at present. Last year it was agreed, last year it was agreed that additional budget would be implemented in order to assist with the planning process and backlog. Seemingly the system at present has essentially fallen apart underneath the large caseload and backlog. Planning officers haven't had access to the necessary network since Christmas, and officers are telling developers to expect a 6-month delay period until determination. I think it's really, really important that this has not been overlooked going forward, as these delays are really going to affect Dumfries and Galloway economically, and I think this needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Leader. This is clearly quite a vanilla budget, unlike the Liberal Democrats who would probably given us Raspberry Ripple or something, because it's Richard's budget is always quite an amusing part of this process. But you are correct. This is not the time for a large council tax increase. Things are tough out there for people, and we've got to be cognisant of that. And I would like to assure Councillor Scobie that there are times where left and right can meet, because I fully agree. The issue here is our poor settlement. This is what is painting everyone into a corner. And I, for one, would be more than happy to join Councillor Scobie on our march to Holyrood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Inglis.
Good morning, Leader and members, and thank you for this budget. For me, budget setting is a question of priorities, and I don't think the priorities are being addressed properly by this budget. There are very little evidence over the last 5 years of any significant growth in the local economy. Indeed, tourism has reduced from 327 million to 300 million revenue in Dumfries and Galloway. So there's absolutely no growth there. Education statistics just haven't improved over the 5 years of this administration. And after 5 years, there's no real progress by this administration into the backlog of maintenance in our school portfolio, according to the reports that we're receiving. There is also no significant improvement to address the market failure in the Stranraer East Pier. Now, that's been there for a good number of years, and there's been no movement on that, or very little movement on that during that 5-year period of this administration. There's very little impetus being put into the George Hotel debacle by this administration either, which is extremely disappointing for constituents in the west of the region. We are becoming a more inclusive council, and we are addressing climate change as best we can. However, this administration has failed to adequately address the council's main priorities, in my view, which are to build the local economy, provide the best start for all our children, and protect the most vulnerable people. This is an administration which is not delivering for local people. So once again, I would say, as I've said in the past, why should our constituents have any faith in this administration's budget?
Just wonder where your budget was there, Councillor Inglis. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Leader, and Hello, everyone. Yes, this is the latest and the last budget of the joint administration, and I too would like to echo my thanks to everybody involved in this, and particularly Adam. Adam and I have worked exceedingly hard on this budget. Working together is not easy, often, as Councillor James has acknowledged in his contribution and compromise. But this, as a joint administration, we have provided. I know how much work it takes to pull together a cohesive and good budget, and I'm proud of the budget that's been presented today. I'm really disappointed that there's no other offerings coming forward. There's lots of rhetoric being spoken about. Councillor Bell has mentioned about his hope for the future and his hope for better settlements and better decision making next time round. But unfortunately, none of that hope has actually been translated into hard work. I do thank Councillor Maitland for her history lesson and her comments there, and also Councillor Brodie. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I might have actually heard the best administration budget in 15 years, so that is very welcomed. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we are still just coming out of a pandemic and there has been huge challenges. I think the budget that's before us strikes a really good balance. Yes, it would be quite flippant and easy to raise council tax. However, there are people who are really struggling out there, and we've done our very best to try and strike that balance. Yes, we do need to make some recurring savings. We do need to try and get some income coming in order to deliver the really important projects, such as the anti-poverty funding, such as increasing that fostering fee. But also we need to acknowledge that people are struggling. So, Leader, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to the joint administration. As I say, it has been a challenge, but it has been enjoyable, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of the team. And I'm really proud of the fact that we have brought forward a budget, unlike the Conservatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hagman. Thanks again to yourself and Councillor Wilson for all their hard work in putting this together. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to support the administration budget and really to thank as well the administration for considering the proposal we put forward, myself and Councillor McClelland, on the options appraisal for the Annan Bridges. The council don't own the bridges, but obviously they've been very supportive up to now. And once we've safely removed the bridges, this allows the next steps to develop options and to take them forward. This will be in conjunction with the Annan Rivers Group, who have been set up, and we've got a long road ahead of us. But once we get those options identified and pick one, we can then go looking for the funding, hopefully some funding from the Scottish Government. I think finally as well, I would like to say, I think the fact that the Tory opposition has not submitted the budget really sums up how poor and woeful an opposition they've been over the last 5 years. And God forbid it, if they do seize control next year, then let's hope they can be bothered to actually submit a budget when they're in power.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Not seeing anybody. A final chance for anybody who wishes to contribute. No, we only, Councillor Levy, I'm afraid it's only one contribution per person.
Yeah, just listening.
Councillor Levy.
Just listening to the tantalising glimpses that the various Tory members are offering of this fantasy budget they could have produced if they'd had the talent and the time to do it. I just wish it had actually been there in actual fact rather than just within their mentality. And I would only hope that some of the new councillors who they predicting they're going to get on have got more talent than the ones they have at the moment, and they've got the ability to actually produce a budget.
Thank you. Councillor Surtees.
Thank you, Leader. Sorry, I'm having a few technical issues here. I I can't get my camera to work, so lucky for you. Yeah, I'd just like to echo my support for the administration budget, and I do feel that collaboration and cooperation is the order of the day. And the fact that we have been in administration for 5 years is no small achievement. And I thank all my colleagues on the administration for helping that to happen with very strong leadership as well. So I do think it's been a huge amount of work, and I'm also echoing the disappointment of my colleagues that we only have one budget on the table, because I think having opposition is healthy, but only if they are present. A specific point for me would be the work that we've done on the small schools, and I'd just like to say that page 6 of last year's budget showed our commitment to schools, and this has come to fruition now. The decision that we have made on small schools is not an aspiration, a hope or an idea. It is now a permanent policy. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Surtees. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I feel a wee bit aggrieved at some of the comments coming, because I actually spent some time to actually work up a budget for our group. And when we've actually worked up the budget, to be honest, there's very little between what's come forward from yourselves and what we would have proposed. There's one or two issues that we might not have politically agreed with. But I did the work, I know that, and I would like to thank Paul Garrett for the help he gave me in being able to sort of construct a budget. Yes, we didn't present it, but when you see what we've got, I think we have to not so much worry about this budget, but it's future budgets we need to worry about. We have £3.4 million of non-recurring funding. I think you said earlier that will have to be found next year, either in savings or council tax rises. What we've seen is we've got a budget on the table that all groups can accept, and we have to look at it as this is going into an election year. Next year, I don't know, I think it'll be a harder year for a budget setting process, and I think next year is what we need to worry about. This year, we've managed to, yourselves and what we could have proposed, would have got us through the budget setting process we have to do today, or the council tax setting process. But I think going forward, whichever group you are, you've got issues coming next year. And I think that's the hard time. And unfortunately, that's what we have to prepare for. And it might not be nice reading next year when we come to this time, if we're still here.
Thank you, Councillor Hislop. Councillor Fairbairn.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's just a comment, really. Just to say that Councillor Johnston's previous comment, I'll be joining Malcolm in that march to Holyrood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbairn. I have to say, as somebody who's been marched on Holyrood on a number of occasions, it didn't seem to make an awful lot of difference in the past, but hopefully maybe next year it will. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Leader. I've got to pick up on the comment from Councillor Brodie about the tennis facility, and I think it's important for us to understand this is an enhancement of the outdoor tennis, so this is an extra facility. And if we need any history lesson on this, the vision that the old Nithsdale District Council had probably about 30 years ago to build an ice rink in the town has been repaid time after time after time. And in fact, right now, we've just been, in your opening remarks, you were talking about the Scottish Curling Championships being at the ice rink. So I see that relatively modest investment actually as a little bit which could could reap a big benefit for the region over many years to come, because my understanding is that it's an indoor centre of excellence, but it will also increase local participation as well as attract the best, and also give us an indoor facility to host indoor international competitions, because it's to that standard. So I'm not going to go on any longer about that. I just think it's worth noting, and I think it's This is this administration's vision for the future, just like Nester District Council did nearly 30 years ago.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor McCammon.
Yes, thanks, Leader. It's just really to address a comment from Councillor Lever, actually, and it's just what talent is it that the Tories are missing in that? How have we failed to lose 3.x amount million in the roads department?
Well, there's not a capability of anybody to come back on that. I'm just... Yeah. Sorry, I didn't... Well, I didn't make the comment, so... All right, Councillor Lever can come back in. Yeah, come back in.
Well, possibly the talent to actually draw together a budget which they can publish. That might be what it's missing.
Councillor Carther's back in because but I'm not letting everybody come back in for a second time because that'll just protract the meeting, and everybody has indicated that they hoped the meeting would be over quickly. So Councillor Carruthers is the last person to come back in for a second time, other than myself.
So thank you, Leader. And as I thought I would get 30 seconds or so I'll keep it very narrow and very tight, so I think everybody's had a chance to say what they want to say. I remind my group every time before we come into this hall, or whether it's here or via Teams, is that the decision's usually made before we get in here. Bums in the seats determines that. But ultimately, I reflected back, and I mentioned this to the group, the first time you presented a budget, and as part of your speech, you described the Conservative group as scurrying rats running from a sinking ship. We were kind of gobsmacked by that, I have to admit. And I think you've matured in a good way, not age-wise, but matured in a good way since then. And your behaviour up till the last few comments, which not from you, has been, I think, quite exceptional. So we commend you in regards to that. I've said, we've lost 2 MPs over the last short number of years, and dehumanising language is one of the reasons is coming to the fore. To keep that away from here, we're local politics, not high-level national. We want to focus on local stuff, and I just remind ourselves of that, Leader. That's what we should be focusing on. And the comments like that, in certain circumstances, I think we are here to set the budget, and there's no other budget on the table. There's no process, as you've already outlined and I mentioned as well, in which to put any alternatives, amendments or anything forward. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Carruthers. In that case, I think we'll move on to setting the budget, shall we? OK, so I get to speak again, goodness. I will not take long. For many years now, budget setting has not been easy, as local authority budgets contract in real terms on an annual basis, and councils have had to consider what they're going to have to cut in order to make savings or transfer into other areas. This year, I am pleased that we have managed not to cut jobs or the services on which our residents depend, but this has required the use of one-off funding allocated by the Scottish Government during stage 1 of the budget bill. And as others have referred to, next year's budget won't be easy because of the recurrent funding gap, unless, of course, the Scottish Government has a change of heart with regard to local authority funding and possibly this March that is going to take place. As agreed by the service committees, we will invest in our foster carers, public transport and gull management. We've also made use of non-recurrent funding to invest in priority areas, including anti-poverty measures, road maintenance, opportunities for young people and achieving our net zero ambitions. Although the next Council will need to consider how to address the recurrent funding pressures, this administration leaves the next with a considerable financial cushion. A balance of $237,000 from the Business Rates Incentivisation Scheme remains. The uncommitted COVID-19 funding has not been touched, nor has the Budget Pressures Resilience funding or the Corporate Change funding, and we still retain 2% in general reserves as directed by Audit Scotland. So I won't be leaving a message in the Leader's desk saying that there's no money left. I commend this budget to members. Are we prepared to well, we've got 3 things. Agree the administration budget. Agreed. To agree the staffing policy for schools of between 19 and 25 pupils be updated to make them second 2-class schools. Right, okay. And note that we are awaiting further information and funding allocations on Scottish Government commitments to music tuition and devices for learners, and agree that the Education and Learning Committee will consider a report on these at its March meeting, at which further funding can be allocated. Prepared to agree that? Great. Thanks very much. Now, that has reminded me that we did not agree the minute, which was agenda item number 3. It wasn't actually in my notes, but we're content to agree the minute, which is an idea from the 16th of December 2021. Okay, that's great. So, oh yes, there is an amendment to that as well, which we noticed, which I'd completely forgotten about. Vlad.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just to point out, there's a couple of errors in terms of those that voted in the motion at 12.4 within a minute, so we'll correct that. That's Councillor Drysdale, Councillor Fairbairn, Councillor Giusty and Councillor Wood all voted in the amendment rather than the motion, so we'll correct that in a minute.
It's what the minute at the moment indicates they voted twice, but I don't think any of them did actually vote twice. Okay, thanks. With that amendment, are people content? Okay. Right, I have no business deemed urgent due to the need for a decision. However, I am happy to accommodate the request from members to record their congratulations to our Olympic medal winners, and I invite members to indicate their desire to speak, but I do know that Councillor Sloan and Councillor Surtees had already indicated their desire to speak, so I shall invite Councillor Sloan first, and then Councillor Surtees, and then others.
It's actually Councillor Hislop, please, Leader.
Hislop,
please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. As you said, the whole of Scotland's proud of the curling teams being a sort of Milton Keynes out of Scotland. But we are particularly proud in Ward 1 because we have 3 out of the 10 young people. So, and we would ask at some time that the council, when we're ready to have a small civic reception, to honour these people.
You say there is a reception coming up that's being organised at the time for, because we wanted to acknowledge the successes of other curlers in earlier competitions and also the Summer Olympics. So there will be something to which the Winter Olympics champions will be invited to. Thanks. Councillor Surtees.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Sloan. I just want to echo Tommy Sloan's comments about how proud we are in Ward 1, and of course the whole of Scotland is very proud of both teams. Gold medals and silver medals coming back to Dumfries and Galloway is absolutely incredible. So yes, I'm really looking forward to celebrating their success. But I just wanted to give a shout out to tiny little Liswalt Primary School. 2 participants, medal winners coming from a tiny school in Liswalt, and they couldn't be more excited. So thanks very much for allowing me to congratulate them personally.
Thank you, Councillor Surtees. Yes, you wonder what must be in the water in Liswalt that produces these curlers. Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to take the opportunity to congratulate both Team Mowat and Team Muirhead. It's been their dedication to their sport is inspirational to a lot of young people in the area. 8 years ago, it was David Murdoch who got a silver medal from this area and came back and inspired young people to take up curling, and we're now reaping the benefits of that. I can remember I benefited from that. My 2 boys play curling, and I remember sitting in the curling lounge watching my boys train, and a young lad next door to them, Ross White, they are throwing stones up and down himself hour after hour, dedicated to his sport, and this is what it takes to get you there. But I think we also need to thank and congratulate the hundreds of volunteers across the region who actually help out, whether it's at the Northwest Castle, the Ice Bowl, or at Lockerbie, who provide a service for young people to take the opportunity to play curling. And I think we also have to look to the future as well. Dumfries and Galloway is well represented in curling. We have, is it the under-21 men's junior team going out to the Worlds in May. We have 3 members from Dumfries and Galloway. There was the girls team that were meant to be out at Loja in Finland. Unfortunately, that was cancelled. So We had members from Dumfries and Galloway in that team. The under-21 Asham first, second and third teams all had Dumfries and Galloway curlers. The girls' first team was Dumfries and Galloway curlers in it. We've also got under-17s, where we've got 3 or 4 teams coming up through that are all Dumfries and Galloway curlers. So we've invested as a region in this, and I think it's paying its dividends. So I think we need to thank the players for giving inspiration to everybody and the volunteers who have helped them get and achieve their goals.
Thank you, Councillor Hislop, and I look forward to seeing a Hislop in one of the teams in the future. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, I think Tommy said it, and I just went further in terms of how Scotland should be proud. And I think it was billed as Team GB, but I think we should take the honour and say it was Team D and G, at least for the men, and we still had representation in the women's group. And it is exceptional to have 2 coming from the small village as it is. I think it's something to do with the shop maybe there. However, I'll declare an interest there. So, you know, we should honour these people that's gone. And the award is exceptional to be, you know, gold and silver at the Olympic Games. Far exceeds anything that we would ever expected. And they've gone, they've proved themselves, and it's tremendous. It's exceptional. I don't know how many times I've said that now. But I would hope that, as you say, Chair, we're going to have a civic reception, that it will be held in Stranraer. We had 3 of the 4, and I believe the one for Kirkgunion actually is married to a Stranraer lassie. So, you know, it must be something doing that end that we can deliver such success. So I would hope that when we are considering it, that we maybe look at the Northwest Castle as an opportunity to hold that reception, because of the numbers that have come from Ward 1. That is really exceptional again.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. Unfortunately, sitting watching the curling, I think it's bringing tears to my eyes. But I would just like to say the BBC did a tremendous job identifying Dumfries and Galloway. Usually Dumfries and Galloway doesn't exist, so it might be that the government in Edinburgh knows that we're here now. And I really, the one that caught me was Hazel Irvine, when she raised the issue of the number of players in the men's team who come from Dumfries and Galloway. And she started off with 2 for Kirkgunion and 1 for Stranraer, but she got this all sorted out, and it was 1 for Kirkgunion and 2 for Stranraer. And she actually laid out where Kirkgunion was. She said it's 10 miles for Dumfries. How to get that for local, I think, was absolutely tremendous. And I think we should thank the BBC for the coverage it gave us. They were down at Stranraer, I think, last week with the men's championships, and I think to give the coverage that they did was absolutely tremendous. And everybody should be congratulated for what they achieved. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor McKee. I'm not seeing anybody else wishing to contribute, so...
Sorry, Chair, I was going to come in.
Sorry, who was that? Archie, sorry, you're not on the list, but welcome.
I am on the list, Chair. I am on the list. I mean, I was going to say a lot of what Ivor actually said, and it's about the volunteers and things like that. I think we should also thank the council. When you look at Glasgow City Council, for instance, being the only place in Scotland where Braehead shut down, they don't have a curling rink here now, and with the amount of people that actually live in Glasgow, you'd have thought that would have been a prime target for them. And again, I agree with Ivor about the amount of volunteers, the mums and dads that take the young people everywhere, the staff that we have in leisure and sport. Of course, we can't forget those individuals who put so much into it as well. All of that came through, I think, to Team GB with the 2 teams from this particular area, and I'm pleased that we've got that standing to move forward, and hopefully we will see it a lot more Olympics champions and world champions coming from Dumfries and Galloway in the future. And I'm sure that whatever we do in the future, that our ice rinks that will be full of young people throwing the stains. And just to cover what you asked earlier on, you don't know what it is in the water. It's not what's in the water, it's what's on the water, and that's the ice.
Well, apologies, Councillor Driver, you were on the list, but I didn't see you, unfortunately. But I'm glad you got in anyway. If that is all, I thank members for their attendance and officers for their attendance. Our next meeting will be the last business meeting of this council, which will be on the 31st of March. But then there will be a special meeting for the appointment of a new chief executive, which I think is the 5th, if I am correct, 5th of April. So we will see you on the 31st. Thank you.